to, people who've taken us right to grave sites. And they say it's multidimensional energy harvesting, right? And Rome is kind of a center of that energetically, but it happens all over the planet depending on where the energy lines are and everything. And yeah, so that'll be part of the evidence too, that discussion.
And the location of these rituals, is it on ley lines, someone asked?
Sometimes, but not always. Like we've, like for example, you know where Queen Elizabeth and Philip abducted those 10 children, native children at the Kamloops school, and they were never seen again? You trace the latitude of Dead Man's Creek where they vanished, and it goes exactly through the Isle of Wight. And you all know about the Isle of Wight. I mean, it's a kind of a demonic center. So yeah, those, and near just south of Stonehenge as well, and Glastonbury. So I mean, yeah, there are those definite lines, but there's also other places. You know, these Ninth Circle people are just human as well. They have protection, but they screw up sometimes. And there have been occasions like when we broke up that ceremony in Montreal, it was happening beneath Reine de Mont Cathedral in Montreal, Marie Reine de Mont. And yeah, these guys then take off to a place in the country, in the Quebec country. They were later tracked down and found that they'd gone to a safe house where they also tried to do these things. So enough pressure is brought to bear, and these people break, even with all the protection in the world. And so that's why we keep emphasizing now it's time for action. We've got a lot of evidence, a lot of information. Now, how do we stop them? That's the question before the court, right?
So has there been infighting in the Ninth Circle, and does it have like a set leader?
There was a big infighting going on between Ratzinger and Bergoglio. Okay, so Pope, keep forgetting the guy's name. What was Benedict, Pope Benedict and Pope Francis? As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that Pope Benedict Ratzinger stepped down after we brought out this evidence is there was, do you remember I mentioned how the Spanish government had looked at our evidence, wrote to Ratzinger and said, you may face arrest if you come to Spain. Then he resigns, February 2013. One of the people who did that was a guy, he was the Spanish ambassador to the Vatican, Eduardo de Berruga, his name was. He was a close confidant of guess who? Jorge Bergoglio, who then became Pope Francis. So the Francis faction, and I'll talk about that, who they are, they exploited what we were doing in order to ease out, kind of bounce out Ratzinger to allow Francis to look like this wonderful saint who's replaced the bad emperor, right? And yeah, I mean, he even looked like the evil emperor, right? So now you bring in smiley-faced Frank, named after Francis of Assisi, you know. The contrast reassures everybody that, oh, good, the church is back in good hands now, as if the Pope has any power, right? You know, so that's part of the game that's played, and it definitely was a factor in getting Ratzinger out, you know. Their enemy of their enemy was their friend, kind of thing, you know. But there you go, Smiley Frank, right? And you'll notice the guy who's in now, Bob Prevost, he's also a smiley guy. You know, you got to keep up the image because more and more of this dirt is coming out. So you got to keep people's head in the bubble that, you know, depending on how one guy smiles determines the health of the church. So anyway, the Francis faction, this guy, was not the old Italian guard. Like Ratzinger was kind of the old European mob. And he's with China, or was with the China faction. As we've talked about, their money is going east. It's why Biden and other US presidents go over and yeah, there he is, another Frank number 2 there. And so it's part of the political shift. The new faction in the church that this guy also represents is the pro-China lobby, and they're going into the BRICS alliance and all that. So it comes down to that money issue as well.
Yeah, I mean, look at the contrast, viewers, in these smiley guys. We've got smiley guy 1, smiley guy 2, versus the dead eyes of these guys. It's a whole different front, isn't it, for PR purposes?
Yeah, and don't forget those pictures you're looking at of the smiley guys are doctored, so you don't see their eyes, you know. And we've even talked to media people in those are not his eyes. You know, we've talked to media people in Italy who do this, who are hired not only by the church, but corporations, governments. When you got some real bastard, you've got to make them look good, right? So it's AI technology kind of appealing to what people want to see. Some nice guy at the helm, so we'll all be taken care of while they, do all these heinous crimes off at the side, right?
They probably have the same people come in who do, with the female models in the photos, they dilate their eyes,
Oh yeah,
so they look more seductive, etc. But you're saying they do the same thing with the pictures of the popes?
absolutely. Why wouldn't they? It's the richest corporation on the planet. Why wouldn't they be doing it even more for these guys? And because they have even a lot more. They've got 2,000 years of crime to cover up, so they're going to be the prime recipient of these efforts, right? But I know, from personal experience, I've met some of these people when we did the church occupations. I've looked into the eyes of these priests and archbishops, and the church people who got rid of me. Same deadness, same lack of empathy, and it just reminds me how demonic this thing is and how universal it is we're dealing with. The best cover for evil is a church, right?
Of course, yeah. So over the years then, has the Ninth Circle stuck to the same rituals, or has it evolved?
It's a good question. It's something I can't answer, but the eyewitnesses will be able to, because some of them have been in, like this German woman, until relatively recently. Like the people you need to get to are the members of the children, like Tus, who were not killed, who were the witnesses. But they are very loath to come forward naturally, because if there aren't other people willing to come forward, and if they're not protected in a major way, where is it going to get them? Like Tos is living in hiding now, and she had to after our interviews, right? There were a number of attacks that happened in that and threats, but they know very well what's going to happen to them if they reveal too much. And so that's kind of an impediment. That's why we need other people in the infrastructure to come forward, like that guy, the Ninth Circle guy, who's given his secret testimony, the government people and others. And you only get that when you threaten their money and their public image, like we did in Canada. So we got to ramp up the action on this, and that way they'll start breaking ranks. If we do all the interviews in the world, that's not going to threaten them. But taking action directly where they live and they do these practices, that's what we're doing. We're forming, actually, part of the work of the court is they're forming special teams of trained people to go in and seize the evidence, make the arrests, do all that, bring them into court. If they're not willing to come, they will physically bring them into court. And we figure, if they want to get their goons and have a punch up and have a confrontation, all the better. We'll film it, embarrass them even more, put the police on the spot saying, why aren't you investigating these things? We've done that in Canada. We confront the RCMP directly. Once we started doing that, suddenly you see in the press all the revelations about residential schools coming out, at least they're spun revelations. And so it always has an effect when you take direct action. And it's fun as well. Let me tell you, it's great seeing them shit themselves when you're showing up in their churches.
So Susan wants to know, are all Catholic bishops part of the Ninth Circle rituals?
They're not participants necessarily, but they're all supporters of it. They know about it. They cover it up. They go after people who talk about it, and they support it in every way. They have to. It's part of it. Like I say, it's part of your vow to support the church institution, and part of the church institution is the Ninth Circle. So yeah, they all know, even if they I know Catholic priests who've left after, being exposed to this work and everything. And we've talked a lot, as a former minister, I talk to them and they say, yeah, any church is a culture of fear and silence. You're not to talk about this stuff, right? And, if your local clergy person is buggering some kid somewhere, you're not, the church will deal with it, right? I mean, there's the whole policy in the Catholic Church to do that. No one is to tell the cops, it's embedded. That criminal conspiracy to protect these criminals is embedded right in church policy and practice. So of course they're all going to know, and if they talk about it, they're out, like I was, right?
And because people have talked about it, Kevin, has the Vatican took measures to camouflage the Ninth Circle more, or is it so buried in the heart of the Vatican that they're insulated from ever being detected?
Well, it's known now. It's widely known. As a matter of fact, one of the people in Italy working with us said a lot of Italians know about the Ninth Circle, you know. But Pope Francis, he was an attempt to bury it. That's the whole reason. And the guy in now, Prevost, they think they can bury it, even though they're personally part of it, like that testimony that he was there at least 2 Ninth Circle ceremonies that eyewitnesses have seen him at. And so they have that hubris, right? That the Greeks said the inevitable result of being in power is hubris, this arrogance and self-confidence that you're God and nothing can ever touch you. Well, that always works in our favor all the time. And let's hope they keep acting that way, because they shoot themselves in the foot all that time and they don't see us coming. They're overconfident. And, you know, so, I mean, that's part of the climate, right?
So are there any popes that have ever gone against the Ninth Circle or tried to stop it?
You know, people theorize that John Paul I, who was poisoned after 28 days in office, was going to, but that's just surmising. He never mentioned the Ninth Circle. He had to be part of it in order to become Pope in the first place. He's on, like we talked about, what we've learned from the Vatican logs, there's a red list of accepted candidates like this Prevost on the right, who that very month that he was shaking hands with John Paul II was part of that Ninth Circle ritual. Okay, so he was on a red list. He could become a future Pope. So John Paul I couldn't have got in unless he was part of it. He went after the Vatican Bank and threatened the money. That's why they got rid of him. So I don't see how any Pope could go against it, because at that point, you're so programmed, you're so in the club. Why would anyone go against it? Right?
Secret Watcher wants to know whether Cardinal Pell was involved in the Ninth Circle.
Well, like I said, by definition, they're all involved directly or indirectly by sin of omission or commission or omission. But Pell, like we talked about, was part of the Ratzinger faction. Bergoglio got him out because he was interrupted. See, Bergoglio has been trying to concentrate the finances of the Vatican, and Pell was a traditionalist around the Ratzinger crowd who wanted to, you know, he was kind of monkeying around with the Vatican finances, so they set him up to be denounced as a child trafficker. Right? So, you know, it's all Vatican politics. It's, you know, it's just.
So Jerry wants to know whether you think the members of the Ninth Circle are demonically possessed.
That's part of it. But the thing to understand is the institution is demonically possessed. You know, because, I mean, just try to talk to a loyal Catholic about this stuff and watch the reaction. It's like somebody possessed. It's like, you know, they refuse to believe that you know, their leader can do that, right? That's a state of possession. I mean, and a whole culture that knows these things are going on and don't lift a finger to stop it. That's a state of possession. So, I mean, I wouldn't kind of make that seem like it's some weird separate thing from any of us. We're all part of this problem, right?
Jimmy Savile. Was Jimmy Savile in the Ninth Circle? Because he was knighted by the Pope, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so undoubtedly, you know, I mean, when you talk about somebody's eyes, just take a look at his. But no, you got to assume that, but no specific evidence that he was at ceremonies. I've never seen it, but who knows?
So Barry wants to know, how do the members of the Ninth Circle get sexually turned on with such horrific things happening around them?
Well, just talk to any sadomasochists. People are sexually aroused by all sorts of weird things. I know as a minister, working on the street for many years, I mean, and a lot of the young girls working on as prostitutes, you know, the thing that they can't get sexually excited anymore, but the thing that used to is like if their father had violated them and all this stuff, that's the only way they could get excited, through violence, watching the ripping apart of children or animals. I mean, because don't forget, it's interesting, the part of the human brain responsible for aggression and the so-called elevated spiritual feeling is also responsible for the sex drive. It's in the hypothalamic region of the brain. So in other words, you can kill, you can get a sexual high, and you can believe in God all at once. It's the same part of the brain. That's why the old adage is, you know, if you wanted, it's more likely to be a criminal in these things we've been talking about if you're religious, because religion gives you the moral justification and the high to feel that, oh, this is great what I'm doing, right? Whereas an atheist might be more skeptical that God is on your side when you're doing this to children, right? Or committing just war or whatever. So I think that's, it could be wired into us biologically too, and that's the scary thing, right?
So can anyone that's in the Vatican, like, how do you join? How do you get into the ninth circle? Are you selected,
Yeah.
or can you apply? Like, you know, like in the mafia, you become a made man. There's all this
Yeah.
ritual around it.
It's all in the family. You got to be brought in and inducted. Usually, you can't just knock on the door and say, "Hi, can I be part of?" No, they blackmail and induct people in to be participants. But the foundation of it is built on these Catholic families, intergenerational over many centuries, and they're the hub of. They bring their children in, like the Trudeaus in Canada. Pierre Trudeau, the father, Jesuit, just like Justin Trudeau, the former prime minister, was Jesuit educated, off to Rome. Giving up the eldest child, like the Trudeau family, the Dutch royal family, they're all sacrificed their children to these things. So, I mean, you got to be born into it. It's like, quote, royalty, right? They see themselves as that. And, but they also have participants who come in and can prove themselves. Right?
William wants to know which of your books describe the ninth circle.
Murder by Decree. On Amazon, it has the, kind of the background and more on that. This book, there's two things I want to mention too. This is a summary, but it has recent evidence in Canada about how the Ninth Circle operated on the West Coast, how they were responsible for knocking off our people. Like, Harry Nahane, William Coombs, who saw Queen Elizabeth take the kids, Bingo Dawson. There was actually a West Coast common law court case 2 years ago where it looked into what happened to me and these people, how it involved Ninth Circle participants, like the very church people who got rid of me and who arranged, the elimination of our members. They're all in the Ninth Circle chapter on the West Coast of Canada, the 12 Mile Club. And so, yeah, those books and a lot of our former radio shows, if you write to me, angelfire101@protonmail.com. I'll send you the links to our former BBS shows, radio shows that go into this in more detail.
So what would happen if someone was picked to join the ninth circle and that person refused?
They'd be threatened. They'd be warned not to ever talk about it. If they did, they'd vanish. Or they would be made a public example of, and their body parts would be found all over the place or something like that, right?
And do you know of any times that actually happened?
Well, I know that it happened to a number of people in the church. Now, I got to remember, there was a predecessor on Vancouver Island who was looking into what I found out in the United Church and about the 12 Mile Club operating off the United Church mission boats that went up and down the coast to the native villages. And I forget her name. She was found in a grisly condition, all chopped up. And there was usual fog around that. That was back in the 1960s, I believe. I'm going to look up the name for you. But again, like what happened to me and her in different ways, it's meant to be a public example to scare people, right? As people were scared off after they learned these things. So, I mean, yeah, there have been cases, and I'm sure there are more. We just, you mentioning that, I'm actually going to flag that to the prosecutor to help document those cases of what happens to people. Naturally, we don't want to talk about that too much because it'll scare people even more, and that's meant to do that. They do these things in plain sight so that then people back off, right?
So before I ask you this question, I'll just read what the 9 spheres of heaven means. So Dante's Paradiso describes a universe with 10 celestial spheres, including 9 primary spheres of heaven, and the ultimate realm of God. These spheres are the moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the fixed stars, and the primum mobile. Dante associates each sphere with a celestial body and the 9 levels of the angelic hierarchy. And then you've got the moon associated with those who made vows but lacked consistency. Mercury linked to those who pursued worldly glory and ambition. Venus, those consumed by earthly love. The sun, those who are wise, knowledgeable, intellectual. Mars, valiant in battle, achieved greatness through strength. Jupiter, wise, righteous, and just. Saturn, virtuous, adhering to the law and tradition. the fixed stars. Dante encounters souls of saints and biblical figures reflecting faith, hope, and love. And the primum mobile, this sphere is the outermost sphere of motion where angels are located and the universe is thought to be driven. And the question for you is, if they believe, and I believe they're referring to the Vatican, in the 9 levels of hell, do they also believe in Dante's 9 spheres of heaven?
Well, don't forget, if they really believed in heaven and hell, and they believe you go to hell for doing sins, do you think they'd be practicing these things? What they say they believe in, it's like people go to church. Oh yeah, I believe in all this stuff, but then look at what they do in a week, during the week. They don't practice it. It's just for Sundays, right? This is the official rationale you need to justify what you're doing. That's their mindset. In truth, there are not hierarchies. I mean, if take Jesus' own words, for example, if he believed in a spiritual hierarchy, would he have said the kingdom of heaven is within you, within all of you? He would have said, no, go to the church and get absolution like the church created after, right? The church creates these hierarchies in people's minds. So you're subordinate and you've got to follow somebody else's lead. It's part of the imprisonment of the human psyche and soul, right? But the reality, as Native people tell us all the time, the few that are left around who are traditionally indigenous, they say, no, there's this oneness in the universe, you know, and we're part of that oneness. And kind of like Jesus's own teachings and many other faith teachings, you know, that say that hierarchy is a human invention, just like fear and all these things. So I don't, you know, in a way, Dante, who knows why Dante wrote that? Maybe it was a propaganda piece from the Vatican, like who knows? But I wouldn't put ultimate stock in it, right? I would use our own common sense, our own love, our own humanity to get at the heart of these things. Right?
So next question from a viewer is it the case, the bigger the sins against God you commit, the higher Satan promotes you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way of describing it. But I mean, I know that when you do something wrong and you know it's wrong, you're diminished. And there's actually, they use that word in the Bible, actually, where they're describing God forgives the sins of the people of Israel, but he's diminished by it. There's a word nepish in Hebrew, which means God's own, this is wild, God's own substance is diminished because of the sins of his people. Okay, so that's very accurate. What happens when we do the wrong thing, we become less, and we become less and less, and we expect everyone around us to become less and less, you know, and that's why they hate people who coexist with this institutionalized evil we're all in. They hate truth tellers. They hate people shining a light on that because they're revealing their own diminishing. And you diminish enough and you're not there anymore. Something else is taking you over. And that's the real evil. You know, that's when we're able to do these horrible things to children and to each other and to lie about it, and the lie piles on the lie. But we've got to be brave in the face of that and say, no, we are holding on to humanity, and any one of us can do that and should do that, right?
So we're almost an hour in doing a deep dive on the Ninth Circle, and this is probably one of the most fascinating episodes that we've ever done. I'm certainly fascinated, and I hope you viewers are as well. There's tons of questions coming in. Please keep the questions coming in, folks, but also please support Kevin. His links, his work, his books, all the links are in the description. We've got almost 2,500 watching right now across all of the platforms. So please keep your questions coming in. And Kenneth wants to know, how influential is Opus Dei in Catholic Church circles?
Well, they have been traditionally. I don't know how much they are now, because don't forget, Francis and now this guy, Prevost, are liquidating the finances and the independence of all these different cults within the church. And Opus Dei, the work of God, it means, has traditionally been associated like with military dictatorships, arms dealing all over the world. But, you know, it's part of the facelifting the Vatican's doing. China doesn't want the finances interrupted. So the Vatican's got to do anything they need to do to make sure they get the money and they look good. Protect your public image and money. That's their weak links. That's their Achilles heel that you always have to hit at. So I don't know. It's a good question. And I'm going to find that out more when I go to Italy and start snooping around more. But I would say that no, that it's questionable how independent these groups are anymore and how if they even exist, right?
So is the ninth circle just one of many competing rituals within the Vatican, or is it like
No,
of that genre? Is it solely the main one?
it's definitely a primary one. There could be others. Don't forget, there's. Do you really ever see the real power brokers? Not really. We can sense them, and there can be rumor about them, but and it goes for these cults too. The things that are really at the heart of this stuff, you don't necessarily see it all. We've just gotten this through eyewitnesses and that, but they all do damage control. I mean, I'm sure right now the Ninth Circle are refurbishing everything and getting rid of witnesses, and there'll be some other spin done on it. But so you just got to keep at them relentlessly for that reason, right?
Are the Orthodox bishops involved? You've already answered that, haven't you? You said that they're all privy to it, basically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If anyone had questions about the court and what's going on and how you can get involved, please, that's what we want to focus on.
Okay. Lord Blackwood wants to know, when did the British Crown become corrupted by these Catholic Satanists? Because the Crown turned against the Vatican years ago.
Well, Henry did declare independence and did kind of a refurbished Catholic Church by saying the Pope is on the head of the church. I am. Kind of, that's why Anglican rituals look so Catholic, because they're really variation on the same theme. But don't forget the Holyrood Agreement in 2010 between Ratzinger and Elizabeth Windsor negotiated the terms by which the Church of England would come back into the Church of Rome. And that's a fait accompli. I mean, they retain their appearance of separateness, but in a way, they've always been part of the same beast. And that was formalized in 2010, like I said, in Holyrood, Scotland.
Were the three missing Beaumont siblings in Australia taken by the Ninth Circle?
I don't know about them. I don't know that case.
I don't know about that case either. Did Malachi Martin know, and was it one of the reasons he left the church?
Could be, although I don't think he's ever made direct reference to it, which could be part of the deal. I mean, you know, you work out deals, if you're right in the beast and then you leave, you usually have to sign a confidentiality agreement, sometimes in blood, with the church, that you're never going to talk or you're going to end up in bits and pieces. So who knows?
When is the International Court trial for the Vatican?
It's opening formally on Monday, September 1st of this year. We're using the summer to compile the case. The subpoenas are going to go out to the President, Pope Leo, Robert Prevost, that week, along with his accomplices. And then we're going to be making as much of this public as we can, right? So it should be interesting.
Okay, so how do Romanism, Religionists infiltrate born-again Christian congregation? Do they literally send agents?
Well, they send the money. You know, it's like churches are financial operations, and they don't operate unless they have tax-exempt status with the government. So they're an arm of the state, and they're also an arm of Vatican money. And we've been showing this all over the world through, I mentioned last time, the World Council of Churches, which is funded directly out of Rome. It's the federation of all the Protestant churches who have not accidentally dropped their traditional Protestant statement that the Roman pontiff is the Antichrist, synagogue of Satan. They used to refer to Rome. So they dropped the whole Antichrist thing, and they're all their buddies. It was part of the ecumenism agenda that came in Vatican II in 1962, which said we want to unite all the world religions. Yeah, under them, they've left that part out, under the control of the Vatican. And it was also interesting, it's a little known fact that at that same Vatican II, and not accidentally, that's when the policy of crimen, remember that all priests were supposed to cover up child abuse, that was extended to every Catholic in the world at that same gathering. So again, they're globalizing the crime, getting everybody under the control and making it mandatory for every Catholic in the world to not report these crimes against children to the police, or they get excommunicated, which means you go to hell for snitching on a criminal priest, right? God doesn't like snitches, you know.
So a few people are asking, The significance of the number 9?
I wish I was a numerologist, and I don't know. You got to ask somebody who has the knowledge. I don't want to pretend I have it, but we know that it keeps cropping up all the time. You know, those 10 children who were taken. I know that the number 10 is a symbol of completion and beginning again. So Tos has said this, that there are often 10 children at a ceremony because you use it to kind of, if you're wanting the energy to begin something new again, that 10 comes in. But you should, I don't know, I'm sure you know people, Shaun, who could answer that question better.
Yeah, Beverly Rhodes is in the chat. Well, she was. If you're still out there, Beverly, what is the significance of the 9, number 9 in the 9th circle, please? If you've got any perspective on that, it would be fascinating to hear it. So Izzy wants to know, what can each of us do to help Kevin's efforts?
Well, lots. First of all, contact us. And you got the contact information there. You can start educating people. You can work with the court to do education and even work as an investigator and others in your own community. Because like I say, this stuff is everywhere. Join the campaign to actually take actions against these churches and the places we know these rituals are going on, and sponsor me to come and speak in your community. All of these things. The important thing is to get enough knowledge to know you can then act. Say to your neighbors, stop giving money to the Catholic Church. You're funding these criminals. It's against the law to do that, for one thing. So I'd say write to me and read our sites and books, especially these ones I just pointed out. You know, these recent ones, which I don't think you know about. You can see them all online at murderbydecree.com. This one's called The Criminal Conspiracy to Silence Genocide Truthers in Canada. And this actually is the transcript of the court case we did in Vancouver, showing how the 12 Mile Club and those people arranged the wiping out of our movement. Nine, there we go. 9 of our members in Vancouver ended up dead from, their participation. So those are books to get as well.
So Beverly, thank you.